So as you can see, we've broken down all the different positions for the entire Manchester United squad. You can see how bloated it is because I ran out of numbers. There's more than 25 players that I wanted to put in this list, and I had to cut out some names that they aren't playing anymore, or we know they're going to leave. So like Cavani's a name that's not on the list. And a couple others, like the younger players, I couldn't put on here either, but we know that they are, they exist and whatnot. But we're looking at the main bulk of the squad here are players that could potentially be playing next season or are leaving and are crucial to what transfers we're looking to do. So we have the goalkeepers, we have the center backs, we have left backs, we have right backs, we have central and defensive minded midfielders playing at a pivot or in a 8/6 role. We have the attacking midfielders, more of a number 10, potentially false 9 sort of role. Left and right forwards or left and right wingers, they typically play in a front 3. And then out and out strikers, people who play centrally through the middle as the number 9. Any player that you see that's on the line basically can play probably both, or I see them playing both in Ten Hag's potential system, or where I think they could play in Ten Hag's system. However, there are some players on here that we need to remove. We know that certain players that should be going and players that are either surplus to requirements, not good enough, all that sort of stuff. So let's go position by position. So Dean Henderson, I think, could be quite crucial. I think you could potentially get some money out of him, which will mean that he is better off if he wants to play first team football and potentially get that number 1 spot for England come the World Cup. He needs to go play first team football. He's been touted at Newcastle, potentially. So you could potentially get around £30 million for him. So I think that could be quite a good deal. Even 25 million you could potentially get out of him as well. So there we go. One thing to also note is that we have a budget of around 120 million, and the players that we potentially want to buy could be almost double that. So we need to, drum up some sales. So these are some rough numbers. Will we get 30 million for Dean Henderson? I mean, if Ramsdale can go for that price, then so can Dean Henderson. I think they're both potentially as good as one another. So that leaves a hole needed to fill as the number two goalkeeper here, which will probably be Heaton, but we can discuss that later when we switch over to the next screen. Center back, defenders that we know that are looking to leave or want to leave. Well, Eric Bailly is one of those defenders, as well as Phil Jones. I think for both of their careers, Bailly only, I believe, has 1 year left, or Phil Jones only has 1 year as well. And I think that for both of their sake, they need to go play first team football. I still think Phil Jones in a middling Premier League table can still offer something. He just needs to stay fit, because he's not a bad defender. He was touted to be one of the best up-and-coming English centre-backs, and then just injuries plagued his career, basically. By similar story, he's been fit for actually a decent bit under Ranić and just was not played, which is really weird because of the fact of how poor Maguire was, how injury-prone Varane has been, who is someone that we're going to have to keep an eye on as well. So those two will probably end up leaving the club. For Eric Bailly, 1 year left on his deal. Maybe you can get 5-10 million tops out of him. I'm just going to put down 10 million. These are rough numbers for what we're looking at. Phil Jones, I think maybe get 5 million or basically nothing. But I'm just going to put a random value, because when it comes to around £5 million, you can kind of fluctuate that a little bit. It's a very, very small number in terms of sales terms. The fullbacks is an area that I wanted to address both sides, but I think it's smarter to address the more pressing situations where you need to spend the majority of your money. So I think you have to kind of keep left back as is. If Telles or Shaw were to leave or get injured or something like that, you can use the likes of Ethan Laird, Brandon Williams as an example, as players that can come in and fill in for them, and we could talk about them. Or players that will do that sort of role from the academy that can come in and potentially get more first team minutes in those sorts of positions. Because I think fullback is definitely up for grabs. Same for right back. I think Wan-Bissaka is someone that we need to offload. I don't think you're going to get £50 million for him, because that's how much United paid for him. I think 20 million. If you get that, then off he goes. Personally, I think that would be a decent deal, or at least alone with the obligation or the what's the word for it? Basically you have to buy them mandatorily after the season's over. So I think 25 million for Wan-Bissaka. You can get that. Thanks, Aaron. Just doesn't work out in Ten Hag's system. So again, that leaves another potential issue with a backup right back. We are also potentially needing another center back to fill out at least a core of 4 center backs. We still have the likes of Ted and Mengi and Deschamps Bernard, who are also in the youth system that could come in if need be and potentially get some games there. So those 3 positions potentially we need to look at. Goalkeeper less so. We have a priority system that I have for the transfers that I would like to see. In midfield, the big misses are going to be Paul Pogba, who is going on a free, so we get no value out of him. And same for Nemanja Matic. Both players are leaving on a free at the end of the summer, so we can't get any value out of them, unfortunately. I'm just going to slide these players over a little bit, which is a big miss, because that's 2 midfield positions, 2 of which have been kind of, I wouldn't say a cornerstone, but they've been very crucial into how we've wanted to play. I mean, Pogba, Matic, and Bruno was the midfield that was successful under Solskjaer. When Bruno wasn't there, Pogba was playing more the attacking role, and then you had Ander Herrera, who was playing the box-to-box sort of role. So 2 players that we're definitely going to have to shape things, and then you're just looking at McTominay and Fred, coin of the phase McFred from the United Stand. I think that if we go into next season with just those 2, and then players in the academy, that's going to be an absolute disaster. So that position needs to be strengthened. This is the most important position out of everything. This position needs to be right, and we've been touted with a bunch of different names, and I'll show you the ones that I want to go with. So McTominay and Fred will more likely move down the pecking order. Again, Donny van de Beek can play in this sort of position, but I think he's probably better suited further up the pitch, at least in Ten Hag's system. But I put him here because he can, if let's say there was a significant number of injuries in that position, he could shuffle back or forward as need be. So we would need a midfielder in here and here. I think 2 are definitely required. In the attacking midfield roles, Juan Mata and Jesse Lingard both are going on a free as well. Mata was just utilized poorly, basically, by every manager that had him. Number 10, hardly ever played there. Jesse Lingard was brilliant for West Ham. United could have got 20-25 million for him. Decided they wanted to keep him. That was because Solskjaer decided he wanted to keep every player under the sun. And I think that it was a mistake. Could have got some value for him. And if you now look, I'm also going to get rid of Pereira, because I think you can get some money for him. Probably maybe 10 million at probably most. He's going to go as well. And then you're looking at the attacking midfield slots. You can see that we're basically kind of threadbare there, which is why I would now, so in these midfield slots, you would basically be looking at someone that potentially could fill this void. In an ideal world, one of these midfielders could play a bit more advanced and then help out the likes of Van de Beek or Bruno. If you're playing a lesser team, maybe give them the night off or whatever it may be. But both of these 2 can play the attacking midfield roles. So for the time being, I'm just going to put Van de Beek there just as a placeholder. But yeah, 10 million for Pereira. I mean, it was looking around like 10 million for when he was going to go to, I believe it was Flamengo, I think is how you pronounce it. But now he's being potentially touted as a, move to Benfica in regards to the Darwin Nunez deal. And we could talk about that when we get to the transfers. So I don't think there's a need to bring in another attacking midfielder. I think we were overloaded in that position anyway. I think Jadon Sancho can play the number 10 if needed. I think Bruno can play the number 10. I think Van de Beek can play the number 10. That is a very specific position, whereas if you need someone there, you can play them there. If you want to bring up a player from the youth system, I think Garnacho can play there. Hannah Mabry can also play there as well. There's plenty of attacking youth players that we can put in that position, or at least cover for it in some way, or change the system from 4-2-3-1 to 4-3-3, because Ten Hag is going to do that. His system changes multiple times during the game. It's more about the role in that scenario. Moving into the left or right forwards, or left wing, right wing, whatever you want to call it. So we have Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho, Anthony Elanga, and Martial can kind of play both. However, Anthony Martial, I think you need to sell him. I think he had a bad loan spell at Sevilla, so I think his price is definitely depreciated. I would not be shocked if you could only get around £30 million for him. That would be my estimation. So I think that we need to potentially get some deals somewhere, or at least try to find something to generate a little bit extra money, or at least lower some of the deals kind of down in terms of price, in order to allow for the purchases that I would like to see. And I've kind of highballed pretty much all of them for the most part in terms of how much they're going to cost. So in terms of our sales here, so we got Dean Henderson on 30 million, plus Bailly's 10 is 40, plus Jones is 5 makes 45, plus Wan-Bissaka's 20 is 65, plus Pereira's 10 is 75, plus Martial's is 105. And I would say probably there's probably a variance of around 5-10 million-ish there, which is why I've gone with sales of around 115 million. It's approximately what we're looking at, which means that our total transfers for like budget and sales would be around 230 240 million. I put 235 for more exact numbers. So if you can get 40 million for Martial, if you can get 15 for Pereira, if you can get 25 for Wan-Bissaka, you know, if Dean Henderson's 35, like how I believe how Ramsdale was, maybe you can, and with the amount of wages that are coming off the books, that could probably help a little bit towards the transfer budget as well. Anyone who plays FIFA knows the little slider or whatever, but if you have less wages on the books, you can put more into transfer value as well. So we would probably also need to strengthen in the forward area as well, because obviously, as you can see, we only have Ronaldo, so we would need to put someone in this position here, preferably someone who is in this sort of mode. So in terms of priority, I would say goalkeeper's definitely last, but I'll show you how we can fix that almost immediately. Center back, I would say, is third. I think that's perfectly fine. Fullback, I would say currently, based on the squad and how much money we have to spend in the summer transfer market, I would say this is probably lower down the list, because you could use a youth player like a Laird or somebody like that if really need be, but I've allocated so that we're going to get all of our first 5. This is number 1 and number 2. These are the 2 most important positions, because you can't go into the season with Fred or McTominay playing in the team. They need to be backups, plain and simple. And I think the striker / attacker is more of a like 4th on the list. I think it's actually quite close between the attacker and the fullback, especially if Wan-Bissaka does go. So again, this is the ideal scenario. One of the scenarios I'm going to cut out almost immediately, and it's going to be to change this goalkeeper out, because we already have a backup goalkeeper. His name's Tom Heaton. Makes it real simple. You just have Tom Heaton as your secondary goalkeeper, and if you really need a third choice goalkeeper, bring up someone from the academy. You don't need 3 really good goalkeepers. We have De Gea, Dean Henderson, Heaton, all could play at the Premier League level and have proven that in some way, shape, or form. So that position solves itself almost immediately. So I'm just going to use Lingard as an example, who's going on a free, because we don't need him anymore. And I'm going to replace him with Tom Heaton, who already has a shirt number for United. And just like that, we've already solved that issue for the time being. In further transfer windows, you're going to be looking at the left back position, potentially another center back, maybe attacker, left back, and goalkeeper. That's where you're going to be looking further down the line. I'm just talking strictly about priority for this transfer window. Right. First signing that I think is of the utmost importance, I think some type of midfielder who can break the lines, play in a potentially deeper role, can do it all. The basic Paul Pogba replacement. So we're taking Paul Pogba and we're removing him. And who we're going to replace him with is we're going to replace him with Frankie de Jong, who is in a situation where Barcelona I'll put all the signings here for the time being because I'll have to change the numbers and move them out of the way to make it look easier on paper. But Frankie de Jong for 70 million, I think, is the target price. I think it's 80 million euros, which works out to be like 68 point something, but I rounded up. 70 million euros, I think, gets de Jong. I think Barcelona will take that. United will probably try to drive that price down a little bit, maybe 65 million if you can get it. But I think 70 million is a fair price. De Jong still has like 3-4 years left on his contract. Barcelona need money yesterday, basically. And I think that Ten Hag can influence this transfer. And I think it would be perfect for United. He would play that number 8 role. He can also play the number 6 role. Him and Van der Beek have played alongside each other in Ajax's systems under Ten Hag before. De Jong can play further forward if need be. He can play further back. It just all depends. For the Netherlands is where he plays his best football, which is seemingly a little bit deeper. He likes to receive the ball off the centre backs. He likes to be the conductor, which would mean that he would be more of the defensive-minded side of things. He would play in the central midfield or DM role. So I'm just going to use Juan Mata. 21 would be de Jong's number. So Frankie de Jong. And I'm going to slot him in right there. Next signing. I think the next signing needs to also be a central midfielder in terms of priority. Alongside probably a centre back as well. I don't know why no clubs are looking at him in the Premier League. I think he's absolutely brilliant. He was brilliant in Ligue 1. He was brilliant at PSV. The Dutch league connection, I mean, Ten Hag would have probably seen a decent bit of him. I think Ibrahim Sangare is the archetypal midfielder for the modern era. Physical, fantastic on the ball, great at breaking up play, has a great shot on him, good range of passing, great positional sense, and could come at a very, very nice price. He's probably going to be around 35 million euros. I would probably think around 25 million pounds is a similar conversion there. I think if you go for 25 million pounds, you at least have your foot in the door for a potential buy there. I think he is perfect. I think he could replace kind of that like bigger, more staturous midfielder on the ball, but he's also very good with his feet as well. Passing range is crucial, especially if either him or de Jong will be able to pick the ball off the back four and then play it forward through the lines. Sangare is very good with that. He's also very good on the dribble as well in getting out of tight spaces. A very press-resistant midfielder, and I think for like him or Konrad Laimer is another one who's also being looked at by Bayern Munich. Similar price points, 20-25 million pounds, maybe 30 at a push. You can get them for a very good price, and I think that would be fantastic. And he would replace Nemanja Matic. So I'm going to take his number, Sangare. I think he has an accent on his E, and he would probably wear the number 6 shirt, and he would come in here and replace. Where have I put him? Where did he go? There we go. Put him there. I need Pogba later. So Sangare would come in here. So right, we've now fixed our 2 midfield slots. Perfect. We now have Frankie de Jong, Ibrahim Sangare, and we also have Donny van der Beek as our probably main 3 central midfielders that can play that position, with Donny van der Beek potentially playing in the number 10 role more times than not, or swapping around with Bruno. And then we have Fred and McTominay as backups. If you really need someone at a push, Garner, who I think should go on loan, to Newcastle. Sorry, not Newcastle, Nottingham Forest. Since they got promoted as well, I think a loan for him in the Premier League would be fantastic. Getting him playing 30-35 games across Premier League season would be fantastic for him. And then maybe we can look at him potentially full-time next season. Maybe he takes off Fred or McTominay spot in the first team, or maybe if he does really well at Forest, then a sale is potentially good there with a potential buyback clause or something like that. Some type of astute, smart deal would be good to cover United's back there. Moving into centre backs, so I think we all know what centre back Ten Hag wants. He wants Jurrien Timber. And I think for £35 million, I think that is you could probably drive that price down a little bit. 40 million euros, just doing the calculation here, is around 34 million pounds. So I've gone just slightly higher. I think 36 million pounds is what they want to do. Maybe you can drive it down slightly, but I don't think there needs to be any bargaining here. 35 million pounds is what you're going to look for. In Timber, I think that's a good value. He's 20, and I think he comes straight into the team and would replace Maguire in his position. I think if Varane's fit and Timber are fit, you play both of them. You have Maguire and Lindelof as backup. So this is how the situation would change. So Varane would play left-sided centre-back. And then Urian Timber would play right-sided centre-back. And I think probably the more likely of the two that's going to go out of these two, well, I'll just use Pogba's number, it doesn't really matter. Timber would come in, he would take the number 3. Or he could take the number 2, and Lindelof could use 3, because I know Lindelof uses 3, I think, for Sweden as well. So Timber would come straight in. £35 million would be a great deal. Get him on a long-term contract. He can also play as an understudy at right back, so if you do really need to play him there, you can. Or if you play in a back 3, then maybe he can play as right-sided centre-back, something like that. His position is centre-back. It doesn't matter if he's 5'10". It literally does not matter. We have Varane with his aerial presence. We would have Sangare, who also has his aerial presence as well. Luke Shaw's decent height as well. Ronaldo's very good in the air. We would be perfectly fine on set pieces. It's just about getting to the ball first. You don't have to be told to get to the ball first. You just have to be smart. So a lot of, I've seen people talking about him being, oh, he's only 5'10". Well, there's some fantastic center backs that are on the smaller side. He would come in and play center back. He's not going to come in and play right back. At least that's where I'd want him to play. He plays much better as a center back. He's very good with the ball at his feet. He's rapid. He can dribble. He is a modern archetypal center back. Also, Chelsea are looking at Jules Koundé, another on the smaller side center back. He's not 6'4" or some massive like tower of a center back. Thiago Silva, everyone thought he was too small. He's only, I think, 5'10" or 11, and he's brilliant. So it just depends on intelligence, positioning, and awareness going on the pitch. Then we move into the attacking role. Now this could be a couple of different players. We've been looking at the likes of Nkunku or that sort of player. I think he would probably be the best, but I don't think he's going to be leaving this season, and it's probably going to cost too much money. I think Darwin Nunez is kind of the one, because what you can sell Darwin Nunez is, you can say Ronaldo's going to be here for a season. He's then going to leave, because Ronaldo has the option to stay next season. You will be playing the number 9 when you play, sometimes off the left as well, which he likes to favor the left half space in and around like this area here. So I think that it would be ideal if we could get Darwin Nunez. Price-wise, it was a bit tricky for me to think of this one. £80 million seems about right. I think 100 million euros is somewhere in that ballpark. Be about like 85 million pounds, something like that. I think 80 million you could definitely get him for, especially if you throw in Pereira, who's been touted to be in that deal. So that would subtract some from the sales, but it would also lower Darwin Nunez's price. I think personally 70 million is probably about right. 80 million euros was initially kind of like his estimated value. So I think 80 million pounds should be more than enough. I think that's more than enough to get him. Anything more than that, I think you probably have to go elsewhere. So if you can get someone like a Darwin Nunez you can see how much budget you can put into him with the sales potentially that you could get out the door, which it depends on these sales as well. 80 million is probably a bit excessive, but I've gone on the higher end. Even with De Jong, I think potentially 65 million. Timber, 30 million potentially. I've gone on the higher end of all of these deals. And on the sales, I've gone on the lower end as well. So, if United were to land Darwin Nunez, he could play either side on like the left or potentially through the middle when Ronaldo's not playing. So Darwin Nunez would replace effectively Anthony Martial. I'm gonna get the correct spelling right. I didn't do it for Sangare because I forgot that he actually even had an E on his name. But he would actually I think he puts Darwin on his actual kit as well. So Nunez would play as like a backup striker, but he can also play as a left-sided attacker. So I'm actually going to put him here, which is quite good because he's flexible in that sense. Now, looking at the sales here, or the transfers and the sales rather, you got 70 million for De Jong. Nunez with 80 million makes 150. Timber with 35 million makes 185. Ibrahim Sangare makes it 210 million total. So where am I getting this extra 25 million from? I think you have to spend that on a right back. I've gone a lot higher. This could be a Jed Spence from the likes of Nottingham Forest. He could be around 15, 20 million. You maybe go for a Dumfries. He'll probably go for 35 million euros, 40 million euros. So it'll be around the 30 million mark, a little bit more on the expensive side. You could potentially go for a Tavernier over at Rangers. He probably would be around a similar 20, 25 million mark maybe. But I've gone for Riddle Baku of Wolfsburg. I think someone who is very versatile, plays in the right wing back role, also plays at right back, very attacking, very good with the ball at his feet, something that basically Aaron Wan-Bissaka is not. So I think that he would be a fantastic choice here. Again, this is only if you have the little bit of extra budget as well. So he would be basically taking Delo's place, or at least they would be fighting it out. So I'm just going to give him a different number. I'm going to give him let's see, I'll just go like 02 just because he's the opposite there, and he would come in and replace this void here, and he would I'll just remove Pereira as an example, and he would be going into here, and it would be fighting it out between these two. Now, all that being said, transfer windows don't necessarily go that way. If you cannot get De Jong for whatever reason, you can then drop down to the likes of a Ruben Neves, who would probably cost 20, 25 million less than that. You could then guarantee yourself that you're getting yourself a really good, a decent enough fullback. Maybe you can then also invest in a left back if you still go for a cheaper fullback as well. Or you can spend it on something, someone a bit more expensive and bulk out that area, with a really, really solid player in there. I mean, I think like Theo Hernandez and Hakimi are the two archetypal best like fullbacks that aren't currently playing for Premier League teams. So that would be something maybe you can look at in the future. So that's what the squad's looking like right now. Now, if we had to put this on paper, let's see what it would look like. So we'll just move these guys out of the way because they've been sold. And I'll keep them just right here because I might need their actual numbers. So again, budget 120 million or thereabouts. I think it's probably should be closer to 150, which would definitely cover the 235, because 150 you have two with sales of around, let's say 100, then you still have the 250 covered there. Sales, and then these are our transfers for the season. Organize them here. Now, what will this all translate to look like on the pitch? Well, we can move these position chips out of the way, and we'll see what the depth looks like. So what I'm going to do is put it in the typical 4-2-3-1 system that Ten Hag likes to play. It's all about what he wants to do with that player. On paper, they'll have that position, but it's what he asks of them to do, which is different. I think problem areas later on, like I mentioned before, will potentially be goalkeeper because he likes to play out from the back. Left back because I'm not sure if Shaw and Telles are either available enough or potentially good enough. Same with Delo potentially as well. And maybe some slight more reinforcement at center back and in the forward position when Ronaldo does leave potentially next season. So goalkeepers, you have De Gea, and then you have Tom Heaton as the understudy there. So what I'll do is I'll put the first position player there, and I'll put the second one like kind of behind them, as it were. Then at center back, you would have Jurrien Timber, who would play at right-sided center back. You would have Varane, who would play left-sided center back. And Lindelof and Maguire would then play as understudies. So I'll put them just kind of like this. Probably a little bit better. Then at left back, we still have Shaw and Telles, so no changes there. At right back, you would have, me personally, I would probably play Baku. I think he's a better player than Delo. But they are very similar in their playstyle. Baku does a bit more solid defensive work, at least for Wolfsburg, because playing in that wing-back role, you have to really fly up and down the pitch. And he kind of can also play like right midfield as well. So if you need somebody, if you need somebody to give it a night off and you want to play right attacking, like midfield in this sort of position here, the right side of the 3 in the 4-2-3-1, he can definitely do that. Again, flexibility is what Ten Hag's systems are known for. Ibrahim Sangare would play in this sort of role here. Frankie de Jong. It just kind of depends on what Ten Hag wants to do in terms of who wants to drop off and get the ball, and then you can create a like a 3 in the shape like that. In midfield to maybe play out through using a 4-3-3. If you want to use a 2, a flat 2, both of these two will be more than capable of pulling the ball off the back 4 and then progressing the ball. They'll be showing for the ball, looking for the ball, unlike what McTominay and Fred do, who honestly put themselves behind forwards and kind of hide most of the time, which leaves United's options really only one way out of defense. And when Wan-Bissaka plays, it's less than one option. So you have the, fullbacks would be the option. Wan-Bissaka is not very good on the ball, so they would often go to Luke Shaw, who would look to pass it inside. So these two would definitely be able to take the ball off the back 4 and progress the ball. As to which side they play, they're both right-footed. Doesn't really matter too much. It just depends on what Ten Hag wants to do. If he wants Frankie de Jong to drop and Sangare to push and use his size and presence, then cool. Or if he wants Sangare to take the ball off the back 4 and have de Jong push further up and be that more of that link and kind of float in and around this space here, or make late runs in the box, whatever he wants to do. The system is very flexible, but I'm just going to put them in the flat 2 in this sort of position here. And then you would have McTominay and Fred. So Fred would be the understudy, probably to probably de Jong, I would say, just because he's more box to box in that sort of sense. And McTominay's been used not very well, in my opinion, as kind of like the number 6. But I think long term also you would be looking to replace McTominay with someone of a better quality that can actually play that position properly. Then that leaves all the forwards that we have available. So we have the likes of Rashford, Sancho, Elanga, Bruno. We still have Garnacho and those sorts of players to play. Me personally, I would like to see this. So I think the way Ajax play currently, they have Anthony, who's a left-footed, right-sided attacker, who often he cuts in to shoot on his left foot, or he also creates very well with his right foot. So basically a 2-footed player that can create and also cut in on their favorite foot. Now, who can potentially do that? I think Jadon Sancho, and I think Bruno Fernandes can play those left and right-sided positions. We saw Bruno when he was actually played out on the flank, as it were. He didn't try for more of those Hollywood passes. He was a bit more controlled in and around the box. Whereas when he plays as number 10, he can be a bit more erratic. And I don't think that Ten Hag would like that. So me personally, if you're going to play Bruno Fernandes, I think you have to play him out on the left or right hand side. And I think you pair him up with Jadon Sancho because you have two creators who are fantastic. In terms of chance creation, Sancho more of the dribbler, like Anthony. Bruno would play more of the Dusan Tadic role, the more of the goal scorer, get in the box, but can also create and cause problems in and around this sort of area in here. Really causing the opposition problems. Can whip balls in towards the back post, where the likes of Baku or Delo can come in here. Sancho can also come in and around the back post as well. So I would like to see him there. The respective understudies, I think Elanga is perfectly suited for that right-sided role. Really runs the channels well. Again, would be right foot favored and could swap wings with Marcus Rashford, who I think would be the understudy to Bruno in this position. If you want more directness and pace in those positions, I think you can go for Rashford, and you want to play Bruno in the 10 because you still want to keep Bruno, and you can drop Donny, or you want to flip the system and you want to play a more more of a Anthony style of player on the left-hand side. You play Rashford, and then you play you keep Sancho on the right, or you play Bruno on the right, or you play Bruno in the 10 with Van de Beek in the on the right-hand side as well, and then he can play. They kind of flip the position there. Then I think Donny van de Beek can play the number 10 position. He can also play in one of the pivot roles, and I also think Bruno is effectively cover for the center here as well. So I'm gonna put a different color, and I'm gonna put Bruno again because can't really duplicate a player, and I'll put him in here because I think Van de Beek is probably the best player suited to play this role, because I think he keeps it simple, he keeps it ticking, and he doesn't have to do anything crazy with it. He can use the deep lying passes of Frankie de Jong and Sangare to press the ball further out to the wings quickly. If he wants to be in and around the box, the quick tiki-taka sort of stuff, he's very good at that. Bruno, not so much. Bruno likes to shoot, he likes to get involved in scoring. Then we have our two forwards. Last two players on the pitch. You have Cristiano Ronaldo, and you have Darwin Nunez, who would be the backup in to Ronaldo. I think Darwin Nunez should play every game in Europa League. I think he should play every game that he's fit and available in the earlier rounds of the FA Cup. I think he should play every round of the Carabao Cup, unless it's like the final or something like that. And even if you wanted to, not play Bruno out on the left, or let's say you were playing Bruno in the 10 for that reason, you could then use the likes of Darwin Nunez. I copy the correct form of his name, and you can use Darwin Nunez also off this left-hand side, who would basically, if you wanted to use him in this sort of way, he would then be the more of the Dusan the Dusan Tadic type of player, the goal scorer on that side. He would be like how Rashford is, looking into do more goal scoring, which you would then use a creator on the opposite side. So you can then put Bruno in the 10, shift Donny van de Beek over to the right hand side, put Sancho on the right, and put Donny in the middle. So you have still two more of a creators, and you have more of an out and out like kind of attacking, more forward goal scorer in Darwin Nunez. So that's kind of how I see the team potentially playing. Again, this formation is very flexible. We have Nunez, who can play off the left or through the middle. Ronaldo's probably the only player I would say, for the most part, apart from like center backs and goalkeeper maybe, that is kind of static in his position. Elanga could probably play across the front three. He could play through the middle, left or right. Sancho, middle, left, right, 10. Nunez, left, middle. Potentially off the right, but probably better off the left. Van der Beek and Bruno could play left, middle, right, false 9 even, or potentially pivot Van der Beek more so in that area. Frankie de Jong could play 10, 8, 6. Sangare could play 8 or 6. You have Timber, who could play center back or right back. You have Baku, who could play right back, right wing back, or right-sided attacker. You have Shaw, who could play left wing back, left-sided center back. Telles could play left wing back as well. And I think that with this, you really have a very, very strong team. And if you just kind of look at the teams in isolation, let's say week in to week out in the Premier League, who would I expect to see play? I would expect probably this team to feature pretty much almost every week. Or of something of similar sort. Let me move these guys off the pitch. Something like that would be something that you can go for. Maybe the alteration to it would be Van der Beek doesn't play, Bruno plays the 10, Darwin Nunez plays off the left. Something like that could be something that you could go for. I think those two systems would be the ones that you would be looking at doing. And then when you go into like the cup games where it's a bit more, you don't want Ronaldo playing in the Carabao Cup unless it's the final or semi-final, a very important semi-final maybe. Same with the FA Cup, same with the Europa League. Ronaldo's never heard the Europa League music. You don't want him to hear the Europa League music. So he wouldn't play in the more of the cup games. You would put Nunez there. Instead of Bruno playing, you would definitely play Rashford more. Rashford would probably actually be a bad choice off the left-hand side. You would probably play Alanga, who likes to go in and around the outside, so they would actually swap sides. So Alanga could play off the left. You could give Sancho the night off, play Rashford there. Maybe you play Bruno in the 10, or you go for like a Frankie de Jong in the 10, or a Van der Beek in the 10. You would then replace Sangare for Fred and McTominay, or you would just replace them with just one, depending on again, this is all dependent on opposition. Baku could then be replaced by Diego Dalot. You can replace one or both of the center backs with Lindelof and Maguire. Shaw would come out for Tellez, and then De Gea would come out for Heaton. So you have two 11s there. The team is still decent enough, whereas it should be able to beat certain opposition. If you find that the opposition is going to be a bit tougher, so let's say you get an early round versus Man City or Liverpool or something like that, then maybe you go for full strength. Because I think in Europa League you can rotate a little bit. In Carabao Cup you can rotate a little bit. FA Cup you can rotate a little bit. And we still haven't even mentioned the likes of Garnacho, Hannibal Mejbri, Deschamps Bernard, Ted and Mengi, who could fill in at center back as well. You also have Charlie McNeil. I can't remember his first name, but his last name's Savage. I think he's Robbie Savage's son as well. He's also a potential player that you could put in there. Garner, if he stays, could be an option as well. So you can see that there is strength in depth with these signings, and that all stems from the fact that you get the key positions right. Our transfers, just to recap, would be De Jong would be first. Another more defensive-minded midfielder, but that can also play the number 8 position, like Sangare, would be fantastic. Urian Timber at centre-back. Darwin Nunez as a flexible, left-sided, central, or like an Nkunku-type player where you can spend a good bit of budget on them. They would be there for a long time. And then a right-back, I think, is more of a precedent over left-back, because I think Wan-Bissaka is looking to be sold, whereas the left-backs are not as of a priority. The budget would be around 120 million. I think you can potentially up that up a little bit. Sales would be around 115, which is the total for the transfer budget. But something around that needs to be a big summer for Manchester United. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Make sure to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And that is how I would fix Manchester United going into the 22-23 Premier League season.